This happened during my university years. Spring break had ended, and I was returning in my double-cab pickup truck from my parents' house to the dormitory. The trip took about 3.5 hours, passing through 3 small towns. Other than that, it was just endless fields. I started my trip late, around 11 p.m. I was still leaving my parents' town when I saw a person walking very slowly with his head down by the side of the road. It was a short, stocky man carrying something. As I got closer, he stuck out his thumb for a ride. Since we were going in the same direction, I asked if he wanted a lift. He mentioned he was heading to a nearby town and asked if I was passing through there. I confirmed and unlocked the door. He got into the front seat, and immediately, I realized he was much older than I had imagined, appearing to be in his mid-40s. Throughout the journey, he remained strange and silent. This didn't bother me much, as I had the radio on loud, avoiding any awkward or uncomfortable silence. After about 40 minutes of driving, I began to regret my decision. The man started holding his stomach, groaning, and complaining that he wasn't feeling well. He began to feel ill and curled up in the passenger seat, rocking back and forth. I suggested he open the window for some fresh air, but he didn't. I understood that he might really not be feeling well, but there I was, driving in the middle of nowhere, while this man next to me groaned and rocked back and forth. There were no cities or rest areas nearby, and I didn't want to just kick him out and leave him alone in the middle of nowhere. So, I continued driving, firm and thoughtful, trying to focus on the radio. This lasted another 20 minutes until he said, "Man, I really don't feel well. Can you take the third exit on the right?" This caught me off guard, not because he wanted to stop, as I expected that at some point, but because of the detail in his instruction, the third exit on the right. I remember those exact words. At the time, I found his request strange. If I were sick, I would certainly prefer to stop on the side of the road or take the next exit as quickly as possible. I asked the man if he wanted me to stop immediately on the side of the road, but he firmly refused. This should have been a red flag, but in the end, I reasoned that the specific exit he mentioned must have a rest area unknown to me. A few minutes later, I took the exit, but there was no rest area in sight. I started to pull over when the man said, No, keep going a bit more." Once again, this should have been a warning sign. Eventually, he told me to stop, got out of the car, and disappeared into the darkness within seconds. I waited a few minutes for him to return, but instead, I saw 6 hooded figures walking towards my vehicle, revealed only by the headlights. It was clear something was wrong. They were carrying weapons and started running towards my truck. I quickly put the truck in gear and started driving in the opposite direction, but they began shooting and shouting. I remember hearing 6 to 7 shots, 2 of which hit the back of the truck. Even so, I managed to escape. I didn't stop for the rest of the way back. I called the police and reported the incident, but never received a follow-up. When I got back to the dormitory, I found bullet holes in the back of the truck. It's worth noting that one of the holes was just a few inches from my tire, making me think they were aiming for the tires. I'll never know for sure the motivations of that hitchhiker, but to me, it's evident he intentionally led me to that specific spot, far from any civilization. Since then, I've never given a ride to anyone again. Second story. Every year, my job gave me 10 days of vacation, and since I hadn't used any that year, I decided to take a week to visit different places in Mexico. To get around, I usually hitchhiked, something I had done many times before. Despite the bad reputation this habit has nowadays, I really enjoy doing it and have met many nice and friendly people through hitchhiking, some of whom are still my friends today. It was around 4 in the afternoon, and I was walking along the road, making the traditional thumb-up signal of hitchhikers. It had been a long time since my last ride, and I admit I was starting to get a bit desperate. Eventually, a white pickup truck stopped next to me. Inside was a couple who I estimated to be around 40 years old. The man asked me where I was going. They looked at each other for a second, then back at me and signaled for me to get in. They seemed normal enough, so I threw my bag in the back, got in, and closed the door. However, I soon realized that the interior of the vehicle was completely full of trash and very dirty, covered with different types of bullets. Before I had time to reconsider my decision, we were already going 80 kilometers per hour on the highway. I tried to make conversation to ease the tension, and surprisingly, it worked. But somehow, the topic ended up on how the woman had just gotten out of prison for a road rage incident. In a worryingly short period, they started asking me how much money I had. That's when I began to realize I might be in serious danger. I thought to myself, I'm done for. They're going to rob me and it's over now. I had been hitchhiking for a few days at that point and wasn't looking my best. I tried to act naturally and said that I was homeless and had no money at all. After my statement, there was total silence that lasted for a while. For the next 40 minutes, no one said a single word. There was a strange feeling, and I was very scared, although I saw the driver watching me several times through the rearview mirror. I tried to ignore the situation, something I still regret doing to this day. 20 or 30 minutes later, the driver left the highway and started driving down a deserted dirt road full of potholes and trees. I immediately asked, "Man, where are we going?" After 20 seconds without a response and with the truck still moving, I unlocked the door, grabbed my backpack, and jumped out of the moving vehicle. I saw the white truck stop abruptly and the lights come on. I ran into a nearby cornfield, and after 10 minutes, I heard a lot of gunshots. I kept running for another 5 minutes until I reached the main highway, where I called the police and described the situation and my location. I waited hidden in the cornfield until a police officer arrived and took me to the nearest station, where I filed a report. Unfortunately, I couldn't provide much information about the people in the white truck, other than that they were a couple. I didn't see the vehicle's license plate and barely remember their faces. Although I still hitchhike occasionally, I am much more cautious about the cars I get into now. Subscribe to the channel for more strange stories from our followers.